Texas baseball nears the end of their season. 5 Texas football players were picked up in this year's NFL draft, and the Los Angeles Lakers postseason is in limbo. All this and more coming up on the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions.
Baylor's a team that's just on another level. They're a phenomenal basketball team. They are my pick to win the national championship.
Now, I'll say this, Brady is Brady, and you can't ever count him out. But this Mahomes offense is really yet to be stopped.
I'll take this opportunity to shoot my shot at Ali Raisman, and I do something clever like, Ali, can I backflip into your heart?
I want some ice cream at the White House. I want to be simple because I want the sweet taste of victory. We'll figure out the entree later. Joe doesn't have to worry about that. Just surprise me. But I want to have ice cream brew in reminiscence of Super Bowl victory.
You got all these 7-footers, all these big guys in the NBA. Why not pull out a 4th of July tradition and go for the hot dog eating contest? See which big man can drown the most hot dogs during halftime.
All the members of the football team out onto the field and just stare right down the sideline. Just line up on right next to the opponent's sideline and do like a very threatening, interpretive dance.
Much like Patrick Mahomes, I'm ready to defend my championship tonight and hopefully even get a repeat.
Let's do this.
And their men's basketball team needs to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
But now it has been overdone to death. Playing, don't stop believing.
Bye-bye, Bucks. Bye-bye, Raptors.
All right, let's get to it. Welcome into the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. I'm your host, Jaxie Pigeon. We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight. Throughout the course of the semester, we kept a running total of the top point earners from all of our spring episodes. Tonight, our top 6 will battle it out until one remains and is crowned the Spring 2021 champion. Let's start out by introducing tonight's first panel. On first base, we have the defending champ, Jake Herman. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was doing a little bit better, Jaxie, before you showed that amazing edit about me trying to defend my title like Patrick Mahomes. We know how it worked out for Patrick. I'm trying to actually defend my title tonight here on Crossfire.
I love it. Alrighty, on second base, we have Jordan. How are you?
That's right. I'm excited. Today, I had a lot of finals work to do, but I studied more for this instead. I felt that was more important.
Hey, I feel you on that. I love it. And on third base, we have Sam. How are you?
Jaxie, it is great to be here. I am hoping we can pass the torch on from Herm to Berm.
Oh, he thought of it. It was clever. We love it. Love to see it. Okay, well, before we get started, I'm going to award Jordan with an extra point because of his homemade hype videos. I mean, he was really grinding with those push-ups. Love to see it. All right, guys, let's get to it. Texas baseball took on the Texas Tech Red Raiders in Austin this past weekend. The series began on Friday, where Trey Faltini and Mike Antico both hit solo homers. But Texas Tech took the lead in the 4th and never lost it and won that one 6-3. On Saturday, both teams brought their defense through 5 scoreless innings until Tech put 5 runs on the board in the 6th. Then Texas was rallying in the 8th, and a rain delay got in the way. They completed that game on Sunday, and Texas lost 5-3. In the series finale, Texas brought their A game and took down Tech in a dominant fashion, winning that one 11-3. There were many different things that went down versus Tech. So what would be your takeaways from Texas's series against Texas Tech? Jake, start us off.
I don't really have a dramatic takeaway, more so a small one. And that is that if you're Texas, even though you're a great team that's competing for a Big 12 championship despite losing this series, you still have to do the little things right. There were a couple of really bad innings that Texas had in the first couple of games of the series that ultimately cost them the game. On the 5-run inning on Saturday, you had a hit-by pitch, a wild pitch, both of which occurring with the bases loaded. On Friday, you had Texas Tech scoring the game-tying run on a passed ball. So you're looking at little small plays that Texas is going to have to tighten up to beat the caliber of competition they're going to have to beat if they want to accomplish their goal of winning the conference.
Absolutely. The errors are what added up this weekend for them. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Jake, and that there was a lot of errors that really put Texas in a hole. I feel like there was a lot of times where they just couldn't really finish. They couldn't string 9 innings together, or they couldn't get that third out that they really needed. And while it can't be denied that UT has a really, really good pitching bullpen, they can't always rely too heavily on their pitching. They got to focus on getting runners on base and bringing them in for runs. And yeah, UT is a good team. We know that. But if they can't finish and perform against a squad of similar caliber like Tech, I don't know if they can expect to make it too far in the playoffs.
Sure. Lack of execution never gets it done. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, Jack, see, for me, this is all about offense. Look, 3 runs is a very decent amount, but when you're facing a team like Tech and upcoming against TCU, who is number 3 in the country, and you have guys like Ty Madden, who's hurt, and you've been relying on your bullpen all year, you can't be leaving guys on base. They made a great run in the 8th inning of the second game on Saturday, got it to 5-3, but leaving 3 guys stranded is unacceptable. And I think, they have to have that end product. They have to be able to drive people home in order to win, big games like those against Tech and the ones upcoming against TCU.
Sure. All of these are fair points. I'm going to kind of go along with Sam here, and that it's this and Jordan a little bit with the lack of execution, but it's just they were getting people on base and they couldn't get them in. I mean, if you leave people on base, I just can't, I don't know. It was so many times that it happened that they just couldn't get the job done. So lack of execution too. But to start off, Sam, you're getting 3, Jordan 2, Jake 1. Next up, coming up this weekend, number 6 Texas baseball will take on number 3 TCU in Fort Worth. TCU is currently leading the Big 12 Conference, 33-10 overall, and 15-3 in conference. The Horned Frogs have swept 4 of the 6 conference teams they've played, which were Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. As for the other 2, TCU lost their series matchup with Texas Tech and grabbed the series victory against Kansas. Given this information and what the Longhorns have done so far this season, what are your predictions for their series against TCU? Jordan, start us off.
Sure thing. Now that UT lost the series to Tech, as we just talked about, they're, I think, 2 games behind TCU in the Big 12 standings. That might have changed with the game last night. And there's still a few games left after this series. It's by no means over, but this series is really going to prove pivotal as to determining the Big 12 rankings. Texas, they could really benefit from getting a sweep against TCU, but I'm not quite sure that they can get that. TCU's hot right now. They came off a sweep of West Virginia not long ago. Whereas Texas lost 2 out of 3 games against Tech, and I don't know their outcome against Texas State. TCU's team gets hits on hits on hits, and they rarely make errors either. They've had a couple dozen errorless games this season, which is pretty impressive. I hope that UT can come in with the motivation to pull off a sweep or at least a victory and vault TCU for first in the conference, but I think that it's more likely that TCU wins this series instead.
All right, so you got confidence is key, but it's not gonna happen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what about you?
Jack, see, to me, it all comes down to one body part, and that's Ty Madden's thumb. He really struggled in that first game last weekend, just with the blister on his thumb, and clearly that affects, having the ball the way your spin pitches are going. It can take a real toll on you. And if they can get a healthy Ty Madden back to his best, 2.21 ERA on the year, which is phenomenal. And that is a real way to start a series. If they can get some good confidence going, if they can say, hey, we can keep these guys in check, then maybe the offense can get them a couple of runs. Maybe they can rally around that and get in and beat this TCU team, who right now looks like the team to beat in the Big 12.
Absolutely. That'll be their toughest competition so far. And like you said, Ty is a big part of this team, but they still have some other people in that bullpen that are pretty good too. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, coming into this series, I like how Sam's highlighted the starting pitching because it's going to have to improve, and I think it will, and here's why. The Texas starting pitchers, Tristan Stevens and Ty Madden from the last series, neither of them were happy with how their outings ended. They both started strong with a few scoreless frames right off the bat, but then in about the 4th or 5th inning, they saw their nights unravel, ended up giving up 5 runs each. I expect both of them to bounce back to the form we saw before the Texas Tech series and really be able to shut down a TCU lineup that is very deep. I think they're going to be able to surprise some people. These Texas starters will this weekend, and I think they'll propel Texas to win the series Also looking to see how Pete Hansen does in his first start in some time this Sunday.
Absolutely. And it was fun to see some of the other guys get to start even in last night's game in Texas State. But this bullpen goes deeper than those two up front, like you were saying, Stevens and Madden. And I think that they have a good shot of coming back this week. Hopefully, because that Tech series of games was not ideal. So Jake, you're going to get 3, Sam 2, Jordan 1. Next up, last Thursday through Saturday, the NFL draft took place virtually. Heading into the draft, 8 Texas football players declared. Throughout the 7 rounds, Texas had 5 draft picks, which was the program's most since 2015 and tied for the most by a Big 12 program. The Longhorns who were drafted in order were Cosme at 50th overall in the 2nd round to the Washington football team, Joseph Osai at 69th overall in the 3rd round to the Cincinnati Bengals, Taquan Graham at 148th overall in the 5th round to the Atlanta Falcons, Caden Stearns as 152nd overall in the 5th round to the Denver Broncos, and finally, Sam Ehlinger at 218th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. That being said, which Texas football player do you think got the best gig? Sam, start us off.
Jaxie, on this one, I'm going to go with Joseph Osai. I think there are a couple of factors in his favor. And number one is the fact that he went to the Cincinnati Bengals. And last year, the Bengals really, really struggled with their pass rush, and that is something Osai really excels at. And really, he's got a great motor that oftentimes translates to the NFL game. On top of that, we've seen in the past couple of years that Texas players really, though, especially the defensive linemen, they translate to the NFL game as well. I mean, if you look at guys like Charles Omenihu or Malcolm Roach, who within their first couple of seasons are starting and playing major roles on the Saints and the Texans respectively, I think that is a great sign for Osai, who can get a lot of minutes off the bat with a struggling Bengals team and has a real opportunity to shine.
Absolutely. Definitely some potential for Osai. Jake, what do you think?
I'm going to go with a little bit of a homer pick in Sam Cosme, the offensive lineman who is playing for the Washington football team. I think he lands in a great situation for multiple reasons. You like to land on a team that's heading in the right direction. That's what the Washington football team is. They're a young team that's improving. You like to land on a team where you have solid mentors at your position. Guys like Brandon Sheriff, Morgan Moses are veterans on that offensive line, and they're going to help Cosme get accustomed to the new level of play. And finally, you land on a team that's looking to get a quarterback for their future. And when the Washington football team does decide on their future quarterback, Sam Cosme would be in line for a huge payday if he can just hold down a starting job on that front 5.
Absolutely. Fair points there too. All right, Jordan, what do you have for us?
I'm going to go with, I think that Caden Stearns might have landed in the best spot when it comes to UT players drafted. Someone like Osai or Cosme, as Sam or Jake said, they probably have more potential, and they're probably going to be asked to contribute sooner, seeing as they were 2nd-round picks and Stearns was a 5th-rounder. But those teams that drafted those 2 guys, which are Washington and Cincinnati, they need a whole lot more help on both of those lines, offensive and defensive, than just those guys. Whereas Denver has one of the more solid defensive units in the league, and they have Justin Simmons at safety, who's one of the more solid safeties in the league. That way, Stearns won't have to be thrown into the fire immediately. He can learn under Simmons and develop his game, and then down the line, he could really contribute and be a part of that Broncos defense. It reminds me of when Deshaun Elliott, who is another UT safety, got picked by the Ravens in the 6th round in 2018. He was able to sit out the first couple seasons and study under Earl Thomas, who just happened to be another UT safety, coincidence there, and now he's a big part of that Ravens defense. You know, I feel like Stearns could do the same for Denver here.
Absolutely. All of them had some great options here. They couldn't really go wrong. And especially Sam getting in at the 6th round, everyone was really excited about that too. But I don't know if that's the best gig technically. But I'm going to have to give Jordan 3 on this one. And then Jake and Sam, you're both going to get 1. I think that Stearns, you have that potential to not just have to be thrown in immediately and just kind of patiently wait it out a little bit and then start getting reps is great too. So Jordan 3 and Jake and Sam 1. And when we come back, the panel discusses more on the NFL draft and 2-way MLB player Shohei Ohtani. You won't want to miss it.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. and picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
You're watching a live sports presentation of Texas Student Television.
It's a lovely evening in Austin. Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies. This is a rivalry game, high intensity, high scoring. Puck drop, we're off. Both of these teams are very fast. Big collision on the wall there. Now a little advantage for Texas. Shot in the middle.
Welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Leading the show, we have Jordan with 8 points, and right behind them, we have Jake and Sam tied with 5 points. All right, guys, let's jump right back in. The 86th edition of the NFL Draft was held in Cleveland, Ohio at various different locations, including First Energy Stadium and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where it was announced that 50,000 fans could attend the majority outdoor events. This year's draft was a lot different than other years and more like the 2020 draft due to COVID-19. However, the annual event still took place. Through 7 rounds and 259 picks across 32 teams, the 2021 draft has come to a close. Just like College Crossfire, not everyone can come out on top. So who would you say got snubbed in this year's NFL draft? Jake, start us off.
Yeah, somebody who I think we could potentially be talking about 2 or 3 years from now as a huge NFL draft snub is Dylan Moses, the linebacker out of Alabama. This is somebody that was a 5-star recruit, projected to be a first 3-round sort of pick, and he suffered a knee injury that cost him his entire 2019 season. And, Jackson, you and I can relate to the fact that 2019 feels like 4 or 5 years ago, not 2 years ago because of the pandemic. And it just feels like it's been a long time since Dylan Moses has been playing at the level where NFL scouts were projecting him to go pretty high up. He had a pretty decent season in Alabama, but went undrafted. He was signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer knows that a guy that's been coached by Nick Saban has the potential to get back to that form at some point. Dylan Moses, remember the name.
Sure, and I like the connections with the coaches there too. Jordan, what do you say?
All right, well, I took this question as kind of who fell farther than what their projection was intended. So I did still pick a player who got drafted, and who got drafted pretty high. But my pick was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was taken by the Cleveland Browns at 52 because I felt like he was one of the best, if not the best, linebacker in the class. This man is a beast. He's very, very versatile. He can just as easily stop rushing offenses as he can drop back into coverage and defend against the pass. He's big, he's fast, he's got good instincts and technique. And he saw guys like Micah Parsons and Zaven Collins and Jamin Davis, who were other linebackers, go ahead of him in the first round. I think that's going to put a big chip on his shoulder. And I don't know why he fell. Maybe it's because teams didn't know what position he should play or thought he took too many risks in his playing style, or maybe there was some medical injury I didn't know. I'm not sure, but I think he was an absolute steal for the Browns at 52. And as someone who roots for the Ravens, as you can see with the jerseys behind me, I'm a little bit nervous to see how much of an upgrade Cleveland got on their defense this offseason.
Very interesting. And Notre Dame, and just that potential first round and then getting middle of the second round was kind of interesting for sure. Sam, what do you think?
Jaxie, like Herm in the first round, I'm going to have to go with the homer pick here. I'm going with Azeez Ojulari, the defensive end out of Georgia. And look, he led that Georgia team in sacks last year, and that was an elite front seven, one of the best in the SEC, definitely the best in the SEC East, and that is no joke, given that that is the premier league in college football. In addition, he gets to work with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, 2 elite, front seven guys on a Giants team that was great in the pass rush last year. So I'm really excited to see how Patrick Graham is going to utilize this guy. And I really think people are going to be thinking, how the heck did he fall to the second round when you see him perform in his rookie season?
Sure. And that edge rush help, it'll be great for that team. So Azeez, I like the pick. Sam, you're going to get the points on that one. Next up, just over a month ago, the 2021 MLB season got underway and planned to have a full 162-game season as opposed to last season's 60-game season due to COVID-19. But more importantly, when it comes to a new season, you must make predictions on what will happen. So why not discuss who will take home the MLB awards for this season? For this question, I want to focus in on who will win the American League MVP. Mike Trout is a serious top pick thus far, and he has already won 3 MVP awards and has been runner-up for 4 more. His fellow Angels teammate Shohei Ohtani has also been making a name for himself at the plate and on the mound. So what are your thoughts? Can two-way player Shohei Ohtani mount a serious case for American League MVP? Jordan, what are your thoughts?
I hope that he can, and I honestly think he might be able to if he can continue this hot start that he's on right now. You know, if you look at sports betting books out in Vegas, many give him as many as top 5 odds for AL MVP, despite sharing a dugout with Mike Trout, as you said, Jaxie, who's just, I mean, he's always going to be in the MVP race. He's Mike Trout. I think that if Ohtani was playing well, like just as a pitcher or just as a batter, he probably wouldn't be in the conversation. Like, he's good at both, but it's the fact that he can do both, and he's good at both. That was a weird sentence. But anyway, that's what makes him an interesting player and an interesting prospect for this award. I think that he's starting to make his case. I don't know if he'll be able to, seeing as Trout is still there, but I would like to see it.
All right. The dual threat helps his cause. Okay. Sam, what about you?
Jaxie, my big issue with it is durability. You know, I don't think it's going to happen because we have not seen enough of Ohtani over a full season on both the mound and at the plate. You know, we have seen a good look at him at the plate for consistent chunks of a season, but either an injury's come up or he's cooled off a little bit. And the same thing happened with him at the mound. You know, the Angels seem to be intentionally limiting his time at the mound because they value him so much on the plate. And I think that's really working against him in a personal way. You know, it's probably better for the team. But in terms of his MVP case, if he can't be a full-time pitcher as well as hitting every game, I don't think you're going to have the consistency or, you know, enough stats over the length of a full season to be a real case for an MVP candidate.
All right. So a few more reps and he might get up there. All right, Jake, what say you?
The durability is important, and it's definitely a concern. And look, Ohtani's done very well to put himself firmly in the conversation for the MVP race, like Jordan mentioned as well. In an American League where it's typically thought of as just Mike Trout and then everybody else, the biggest threat to Ohtani's MVP candidacy is his teammate Mike Trout, who's hitting .407 at the moment, which is just ridiculous. Here's what I'll say. If Ohtani can keep on his current home run pace, he can absolutely win the MVP. He's hit 10 home runs so far. That he's got Trout beat in that one category. So if he keeps that up and he keeps pitching the way he is right now, he'd be able to do it. If I was a betting man, I would say that Trout wins the MVP over Ohtani this year.
I love it. If you were a betting man. No, I like both the points there between Jake and Sam against, you know, this durability situation here. You know, he's being used very, very much in this team, but I do think that Trout is still going to get it this season. Maybe when there's more reps in the future, we'll get there for my man Ohtani. So Jake, you're gonna get the points on this one. Last question for y'all tonight. With less than 2 weeks remaining in the regular season, the Los Angeles Lakers have had some dramatics, to say the least. To start out, the Lakers' standout players, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and even Dennis Schroeder, have been plagued with injuries. LeBron and Schroeder are still out. However, on Monday night, AD made his return versus the Nuggets and put up 25 points to grab them their second win in the past 8 games. All this information looks toward a path a bit different than last season to an NBA championship title. That being said, do you think the Lakers can make it back to the NBA Finals despite being a lower seed? Sam, start us off.
Jaxie, my one key X factor for this whole thing is LeBron James. If he can come back healthy for the playoffs, I think this Lakers team can make it and make a deep run. You know, he has a history of taking teams on his back, whether it is with the Cavs or with the Heat, even with their big three. LeBron is the man. You know, he is that X factor. And the Lakers look like a different team with him on the floor. If he's hurt or if he has to miss more time or if he just does not look like himself, I don't think this Lakers team has the mettle. I don't think this Lakers team has really the ability to just make a deep run like that, especially in a strong Western Conference where they're going to have to face guys like the Utah Jazz or Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. So to me, the big thing is if LeBron comes back, that's a yes, but if not, it's a no.
All right, no LeBron, no success from Sam. Jake?
Yeah, it's almost like LeBron makes a little bit of a difference, right, Sam? No, in the Tournament of Champions, you dance with who brought you. The Los Angeles Lakers have been my team on Crossfire for the past couple of years. I picked them before the pandemic season. I picked them before this season. I picked them again after the trade deadline. I said they won the trade deadline. They were going to run away with the league. And the reality is that I'm not so sure anymore. The Jazz and the Suns are really tough. They're tougher than any team the Lakers faced inside the bubble. The Lakers have the wear and tear of the bubble showing throughout LeBron and Anthony Davis's injury-riddled seasons. But you dance with who brought you. So yes, I will pick the Lakers one last time until they disappoint me.
Hey, loyal fans only. I love it. All right, Jordan, bring us home. What do you have?
Look, I have a rule when it comes to the NBA. Is to never bet against LeBron James ever in the playoffs because he always just seems to find another level. However, just to be contrary on the show, I'm going to break that rule here. And I'm going to say that they're not going to make it back. It's not looking great for LA right now. LeBron and Davis being injured for a large chunk of the season really dropped their standings in the West. And their bid mid-season acquisition, Andre Drummond, he hasn't really paid off at all. And now that Bron's barely coming back in the fold, but AD's been back for a little bit. You'd figure they'd start climbing the ranks again, but that has not been the case. AD in his return, in his last 7 games, he's averaged 17 points per game, 7 boards, and 3 assists per game with a dismal -53 plus minus. Now, if this was like, I don't know, some just role player coming off the bench, if this was Montrezl Harrell, those would be fine. But for AD, who's considered one of the best guys in the league, those aren't very good numbers. Now, I know LeBron's been complaining about the play-in tournament for the playoffs. He said whoever came up with that should be fired. But I think that's because he might be scared that if the Lakers get sucked into that tournament, they might not be able to make it out. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say the Lakers can't make it back to the finals.
Yeah, and Jake, while I appreciate that you're going to stay loyal, I don't know. I feel like it's more on this page of they're not looking too hot, and they were, last year clearly, but this year's not looking too hot. So Sam, you're going to get the points on this one, but Jordan is going to get the win. Congratulations. You have now secured a spot in the championship round. So coming up next, the second group will compete for a spot in the championship with Jordan here on College Crossfire. You won't want to miss it.
Sports Show,
the premier sports talk show on the 40 acres. We're back.
Welcome back into College Crossfire. It is the Tournament of Champions, and I am so excited to talk more sports with our second panel. We will debate anything from Texas softball to college football to the NHL and more. Let's start out by introducing tonight's second panel. On first base, we have Adam. How are you tonight?
Doing good, Jaxie. Excited to be on in the season finale of College Crossfire.
We're happy to have you. And on second base, Raul Rodriguez making his return. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. I'm happy that I can end the semester off with good old-fashioned sports talk. Hopefully I can end it with a win, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, you know, there's always hope. You got to end on a positive note. And third base, Clark, how are you?
I'm good. I'm up against two really good panelists. I have an uphill battle, but it's something I'm used to, so I'm just going to give it my best tonight.
Hey, you got to leave it all on the dance floor. Love it. Okay, before we get started, extra point to Adam to start us off for his hype video. Loved it. Killed it. All right. Let's get to it, guys. Just 2 weeks ago, Texas football had their annual orange and white spring football game at DKR. In the first quarter, the orange team led by junior quarterback Casey Thompson held the white team scoreless and led 6-0. In the second quarter, the white team led by redshirt freshman quarterback Hudson Card came back strong, scoring 13 points and leading 13-9 at the half. In the third, orange put up 3 more, but white scored 7. In the fourth, neither team scored, handing the white team the 20-12 victory. That gave UT fans a preview of what the team under new coaching staff has to offer. Without Sam Ehlinger on the 40 acres, Coach Sark will have to choose who will replace him. So who do you think will start for Texas? Hudson Card or Casey Thompson? Adam, start us off.
Well, first of all, whoever starts will be doing a lot of turning around and hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson. He looked electric in the orange and white game. But I think Casey Thompson, I think this is going to be a battle. This is going to go down the wire. This is a lot closer than people think. Hudson Card is a very talented player. He's a 4-star recruit. He had some really nice throws, especially on some slants in the orange and white game. But I think Casey Thompson showed his raw ability in the Alamo Bowl. People will think he has this job in hand because of one half of play. So don't overestimate the Alamo Bowl. But how about that 73-yard touchdown he threw to Calvonte Dixon? That's the arm strength and accuracy you have to have as a Power 5 starting college quarterback. This is going to be his third year. He's going his junior year. He's got the experience. He needs that receiving core to develop. So I think Thompson, he has a little bit of a lead right now, and I think he'll carry that through and be the starter against Louisiana.
Absolutely. Great points about the handoffs and the long ball there. Raul, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, so for this decision, I'm going to have to look back at the history of Coach Sark and obviously offensive coordinator Kyle Flood. I mean, they've worked with quarterbacks more recently at Alabama, like Mac Jones and Tua Tagovailoa. And those quarterbacks aren't necessarily the most skilled physically, but they have really good football IQ and are really accurate with the football. So I think what's going to be the determining factor for this coaching staff and determining who's going to be the quarterback, is who can make the better decisions in game. As Adam was talking about, we only saw both of these quarterbacks in half of play and obviously the spring game. But I think what's going to really be the determining factor is how they square off in these practices as we move towards the season. I think in terms of seniority and experience, Casey Thompson obviously has the upper leg. Do I see that changing? Yes, just because I know how talented Hudson Card can be. So for now, I'll stick with Casey Thompson, but I wouldn't be surprised if down the road we see some switching.
All right. Casey to Card, a little bit of both. All right, Clark, what do you think?
It's going to be a really tough decision. I think it's one of those things where it's a coin flip decision because you're looking at two players who are probably playing on the same level right now. Even though Casey Thompson is a senior, truly he doesn't have a lot of experience on the field. The only game he's really played in is that Alamo Bowl game, and that's one half. And then you had Hudson Card, who came in a couple times last season and didn't really get a lot of time on the field, didn't get the time to develop the chemistry with the offense. And it was kind of the same way in the spring game is both quarterbacks would have moments that were really impressive where Casey Thompson threw a 40-yard pass to Joshua Moore that would have been a touchdown if he caught it. And then you have Hudson Card zipping that nice pass to Marcus Washington. But you also have moments where they really struggled and missed throws. So considering all that, when the physical talent is the same, when they are pretty much the same fit for the system, you have to look at the mental tools that are there. And even though I really like Hudson Card, he's still really young. You have to understand this is a redshirt freshman who's stepping into one of the most prestigious programs in the country and someone coming up with a lot of hype. And does that mean he can handle the pressure? And the thing you have to remember with Casey Thompson is understanding his background. His dad was a really good quarterback at Oklahoma named Charles Thompson, but he got kicked off the team because he made a mistake. It was really bad. I'm not going to get into the details of it. So with that being said, sometimes a kid will pay for the sins of the father, and that builds a chip on their shoulder because they have something to prove. And Casey understands how special these opportunities are and how special it is to play at a place like Texas. And I think that just a little bit of extra willingness to win, which is what Sam Ehlinger had for 4 years, will push him to be a better player.
Sure. Then this, even like you said, the family roots, even though it's on the other side at Oklahoma. But I do think I like Raul's take here, mostly because I think we will be seeing a little bit of switching. I don't think Sark's gonna be able to decide right away off the bat. He's gonna kind of switch around, but I do think it's gonna start with Casey. So to start off with that one, Raul, you're gonna get 3, and Clark 2, Adam 1. Next up, this past weekend, number 11 Texas softball took on the number 9 Oklahoma State Cowgirls in Austin. The Cowgirls came into this road series confident and proved that to be true by sweeping the Longhorns. Friday's series opener, OSU took 3-1. In Saturday's second game, OSU won again 5-1. And then in the series finale on Sunday, Texas put up a good fight, but OSU still came out victoriously, taking that one 6-4. The Longhorns have their final regular season series matchup against the Baylor Lady Bears. This series opener will be in the final 2 games will take place in Waco. The Longhorns are on a 3-game losing streak, while the Lady Bears are they're riding a 3-game winning streak. So what would constitute as a successful series for Texas softball against Baylor? Raul, start us off.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's going to be a 3-game series. So obviously winning 2 games would be, successful, I guess, logistically. But I think for this team going into the Big 12 tournament, you have to win all 3 games. I know you talked about it just for a bit, Jaxie, but the fact that they were swept by both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State is unacceptable. Baylor is definitely nowhere near the caliber of those other 2 teams. Right now, they're 10-10 in the last 20 games. Texas has had great play from their players. Janae Jefferson has been fantastic. Jaden J.J. Smith as well. And we've also seen some players doing well towards the end of the season. Making sure that they can win these next 3 games against Baylor is crucial, especially as they move towards the tournament. I think anything short of 3 wins is not a successful series for the Longhorns.
All right, series sweep at all costs in order to succeed. Okay, Clark, what about you?
I think you need to win 2 out of 3 in order for this to be a successful series, not tournament. But the thing is, yes, I get it that it was frustrating. Texas got swept by Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, but you have to understand these are probably 2 of the best teams in the Big 12, if not in all of college softball. So that's to be expected. Oklahoma just is like Alabama in football. They keep winning on national championship after national championship. And this Baylor team, although they've struggled a little bit, they have their moments. They're 27-15, so they're a solid team. So they should be able to challenge Texas. But if you come out, get your confidence back by winning 2 out of 3 before the Big 12 tournament and really get a momentum boost, that's what I would consider a successful series.
All right, just a series win, not necessarily the sweep. Okay. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I've got to agree with Clark. I think a series win is absolutely the bare minimum that this Texas team should expect. They need to get 2 out of these 3 games, especially ranked the 11th team in the nation. A sweep would be really nice, but after getting swept by Oklahoma State, this Texas team just needs to get their feet under them, take 2 of the 3 games and get some momentum heading into the Big 12 tournament. You look back at the series against Oklahoma State, Shannon Rhodes and Mary Iacopo, they've been the 2 best players for the Longhorns offensively this year. They combined for 89 RBIs and 29 homers on the year. They had just 3 hits combined in the 3 games against the Oklahoma State Cowgirls. The Longhorns will need Rhodes and Iacopo to have a big series this weekend. So I think Texas, they need to take 2 out of 3, and they need to see Rhodes and Iacopo make positive strides so they have momentum heading into the Big 12 tournament.
Sure. All fair points there. I do think, Raul, on this one, I'm going to give it to you because I think that they need this sweep in order to succeed in the future. I mean, being swept by an Oklahoma State team after already being swept by an Oklahoma team, Oklahoma was clear. They're number 1. It was very clear. But Oklahoma State, they even had this run at the end, and they just couldn't get over that hump. So, Raul, you're going to get 3. And Adam, to your points, Iacopo and Shannon Rose need to get back on their feet because they're big hitters for this team, and they need to help out in this series for sure. So, Raul 3, Adam 2, Clark 1. Next up, after their series against Baylor this weekend, Texas softball will head to the USA Softball Hall of Fame complex in Oklahoma City, May 14th and 15th for the Big 12 championship. As always, whoever wins this tournament gets the conference automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, which begins in late May. The Big 12 tournament began in 1996, but didn't hold tournaments from 2011 to 2016. Oklahoma is the current champion, winning in 2017 and 2018. The tournament was canceled due to rain in 2019 and canceled due to COVID-19 in 2020. Currently, Texas is ranked 3rd in the Big 12, following Oklahoma and Oklahoma State as the top 2 respectively. That being said, how far will Texas make it in the Big 12 championship tournament? Clark, start us off.
Listen, anyone who watches TSTV knows I'm a big-time Texas homer, and I'd love them to make the championship, but unfortunately, I don't think it's this year. Look, they are the third best team in the Big 12. There's no doubt about it, but the loss of Miranda Ellis has been too hard to cope with throughout the season, and we saw that in the series against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, is when their offense wasn't on the same pace. They just didn't have that pitching to mitigate those problems. And even though this is a great Texas team this year, sometimes it's just not a championship year, but that's okay considering everything they've been through with the COVID situation, having so many games canceled early in the season, which is a reason why they've struggled against ranked opponents a little bit, and also losing some of your best players. So even though they're not going to get to they may not get to the championship, I still think it's great to finish third in the Big 12, and they'll do well in the NCAA tournament.
All right. So not taking the title, but still making the tournament. All right. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, going back to the last question, the reason it's so important that Texas takes 2 out of 3 against Baylor is it will depend on their ranking now in the pool play. So Texas needs to win at least 2 out of those 3 to be the number 3 seed. As the number 3 seed, then they would be paired with Oklahoma State, who's a 2 seed in their pool, because you want to avoid Oklahoma. Oklahoma hasn't dropped a series since 2011. They're head and shoulders the best team probably in college softball right now. So you want to avoid them. They should be able to, Longhorns should be able to beat either Tech or Iowa State, whoever ends up as the 5th or 6th seed. So you're looking at a Texas team who should beat them. That Oklahoma State game will be key to determine if the Longhorns will make the championship game. The only issue, though, like Clark said, after watching the Cowgirls sweep the Longhorns handily, I just don't see Texas winning a one-off, especially with the way how Oklahoma State ace Carrie Everly pitched against the Longhorns. She shut them down on Friday. She only gave up 1 earned run over 7 innings. Those Texas bats that struggled against her on Friday, I think that could be an issue in a one-off game. And that's why I think the Cowgirls would have a slight advantage to face their in-state rivals in the championship game over the Longhorns.
Sure, and like you said, Eberle, I mean, she shut them down. And to the players for Texas, like Iacopo and Rhodes, it was pretty incredible that she couldn't even get them. I mean, they couldn't even get against her. So that was pretty crazy. Raul, what do you think?
I mean, I think pretty much everything that they all just said, they're hitting it right on the head. This Texas team, unfortunately, has to deal with 2 powerhouses in the conference, OK State and then Oklahoma, obviously. I think what Adam was saying is true. I mean, the seeding is very important. I think if they do get the chance to play against Oklahoma State, based on what happens in this Baylor series, I think that's going to go a long way. You know, momentum is a very big factor for these games. So I think if that happens, they do win. Going against Oklahoma State is going to be a little bit easier. But again, they were swept earlier in the season. It's going to be hard to win that series, let alone get 1 game win. And back to Clark's point earlier, I mean, this team, they did lose Miranda Ellis, but this is a younger team. So although they may not be able to win the tournament now, I think they will make it. This is a team that can make the tournament and win it down the line, either in a year or in 2 years.
Sure, just need some developing of this younger talent, but definitely have some talent on their hands. I do like you just said, again, Miranda Ellis, that was a huge loss for this Texas team. I think that if they had her, they would be better off going into this tournament. But Clark, I'm going to give you 3 on this one. Adam 2, Raul 1. And when we come back, the panel discusses the Eastern divisions of both the NBA and the NFL. You won't want to miss it.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
You're watching a live sports presentation of Texas Student Television.
It's a lovely evening in Austin. Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies. This is a rivalry game, high intensity, high scoring. Puck drop, we're off. Both of these teams are very fast. Big collision on the wall there. Now a little advantage for Texas. Shot in the middle.
Welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. let's take a look at the scoreboard. Leading the show, we have Raul with 7 points, and in a tie for second, Adam and Clark at 6 points. Let's jump right back in. With a quicker turnaround than usual, with the last NBA playoffs beginning in August, the 2021 NBA playoffs begin May 22nd following the NBA play-in tournament, where teams with the 7th highest through the 10th highest winning percentages in each conference will qualify to determine the 7th and 8th seeds for the playoffs. This is a change unique to the 2020-21 season. But speaking of playoffs, let's talk about the Eastern Conference. The Miami Heat are the defending Eastern Conference champions. Currently, the 76ers are leading the conference, followed by the Nets and the Bucks, who already have secured a spot in the playoffs. That being said, which NBA team is your favorite to win the Eastern Conference? Adam, start us off.
Yeah, Jax, you just mentioned them right there. I think it's a 3-horse race between the 76ers, the Nets, and the Bucks. I've got to go with the Brooklyn Nets. You know, they've shown some struggles. There's some questions defensively, but once this team gets healthy, this is the most talented team pound for pound in the East. You look at the injury troubles they've had this year. Kevin Durant, he's only played in 24 out of the 60 games. The big three, Durant, Harden, and Irving, they've played in just 7 games together, and they've not had a single game where those big three played with Blake Griffin. So this is a Nets team that's been very banged up this year. You always look at the Lakers or the Cavs, playoff LeBron. When they would get around to playoff time, he would turn it on. I think it's a similar story with this Nets team. Once they get James Harden back from injury, I think he'll be the missing piece. They've hung around with the Bucks these past 2 games, 2 narrow losses in the past week to Milwaukee. I think Harden gets them over the hump. I've got the Nets right now as my favorite in the East.
Harden from Houston over the hump. Okay, I like the Houston shout out there. Raul, what about you?
I mean, it's obviously going to have to be the Miami Heat for me. Right now, unfortunately, sitting at the 6th seed, not the best look. But if you look at this team and what they've done throughout the season, coming off of the Eastern Championship from last year in the bubble, this team has struggled. And I can say that as a fan. I know that there's been some downsides to this team. But when you look at when they're all together, when every player is healthy, Jimmy Butler is having a great season like he has been doing for the past couple of years. Goran Dragic is excelling. And these pickups in the middle of the season for the Miami Heat, for instance, Trevor Ariza has been great. Damon Dedmon has also been fantastic on the defensive side of the ball. And Bam Adebayo should be the defensive player of the year, or at least talked about it. But he isn't getting the respect that he deserves. I believe in a playoff series, any team will be lucky to get a win off of the Heat because of how they have performed in the playoffs in the past. This is a winning organization. And although it may not show right now, if they make it to the playoffs, which I'm sure they will, they're going to be the team to beat.
All right, Mr. 305 with the bounce back. Okay. Clark, what do you think?
This is tough because I'm not really feeling that any of the top teams in the East right now really stick out as an immediate surefire contender for the NBA Finals. Let's look at the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, I say bye-bye Bucks at the beginning of this show for a reason. They don't have any depth still. It drives me crazy. You have this player in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's one of the most talented in the league, but they're still surrounding him with Chris Middleton, who disappears in the playoffs sometimes. And even though he did have 40 points against the Nets the other night, that only still happens once in the regular season, and he struggles to maintain that tempo in the playoffs. And any of the Brooklyn Nets, I love James Harden. I love Kyrie Irving. I love Kevin Durant. They all have really cool highlights on YouTube. They're really, really fun to watch. But this team doesn't play defense. Look, they allowed 49 points against Giannis Antetokounmpo. And remember, why did Kevin Durant not win a championship in OKC? He had a great player in Russell Westbrook who, Westbrook and Irving are kind of similar. They're both dynamic point guards who are scorers. But at the end of the day, they struggled defensively to stop Golden State, and they struggled to stop the Miami Heat as well. And Kevin Durant is a good defensive player, but he hasn't been the same since the Achilles injury. So that leaves one team. Trust the process. Yes, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, that might sound crazy, but when the Sixers are healthy, they're one of the best teams in the league, and they're starting to get healthy right now. Their starting group is 25-4 together, and Doc Rivers is a playoff coach with experience. That's really key. He won it in Boston with a team that was kind of similar to the Sixers team. Joel Embiid's kind of like his Kevin Garnett. Ben Simmons is kind of like his Rajon Rondo, who's not a guy that shoots a lot of three-pointers but makes everyone better. And the Sixers have been waiting a really, really long time, and they have the talent to do it. And I think they could be a surprise in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I really think so too, Clark. And I mean, Adam, you mentioned the big three. I think they are a great threat there. But like you said, these injuries that they've been plagued with, and the Heat, Raul, I'm sorry, I feel like they're not at the caliber that they were last season. So Clark, you're getting the points on this one. Next up, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are also fast approaching. When you ask, well, the answer is still unknown because of the halts due to COVID-19. But they are planning to begin in late May still. Because of the cross-border travel restrictions from the Canadian government, the NHL realigned the divisions, so this playoff format will be different than normal. While 16 teams still will qualify, the 16 are made up of the top 4 teams in each division. We still don't have the full bracket, but we do know who will represent the East Division as the Boston Bruins grabbed a 3-0 win over the Devils on Monday to take the last playoff spot in the East and join the Capitals, the Penguins, and the Islanders. With the first 2 rounds being interdivisional, which team do you think will make it out of the vaunted East Division? Raul, start us off.
Yeah, so, this is a really tough division to call, but I'm going to have to go with the Washington Capitals here. For many reasons. First and foremost, they've been hot these last 10 games. Only lost 3 times. They did get a tie, but they have won 6 of the last 10. In terms of how they're going to be playing inside of this division, I think their biggest competition will be against the Penguins, and that really just depends on the seeding. But this Capitals team really boasts one of the most explosive offenses in the NHL right now. If you talk about some of the players on this team, first and foremost, the future Hall of Famer, Alexander Ovechkin. He's a prominent name, and he's obviously one of the most efficient scorers or skaters on the ice. That's not taking away anything from Garnet Hathaway, Brendan Dilly, who've all been great for the Capitals thus far too. And, of course, Tom Wilson, who not necessarily the most liked player in the NHL right now, but all of these players really contribute to a very aggressive and chippy Capitals team that are going to really work for a win. And I think in a playoff setting, that's going to be an extremely important factor for wearing down these teams, which are going to be good teams. But if you're playing some tough hockey, and especially with a scoring team like the Capitals are, leading the league right now with 181 goals scored, I think it's going to translate to wins in the playoffs, and I think they will be the team to represent the East.
Yes, having the most points there definitely helps. Goals are what wins the games. All right, I love it. Okay, Clark?
I think it's another classic Capitals versus Penguins matchup. And even though the Capitals have been very prolific offensively, you have to remember the history of this rivalry. It's about Ovechkin versus Crosby, and usually who's ever healthy is going into the playoffs is the team that advances further. Alexander Ovechkin, wrong time, is having a lot of injury problems right now. He came on the ice 2 nights ago and only played for 39 seconds. That wasn't good. Well, Sidney Crosby, who had injury problems early in his career, is fully healthy. And even though he's not as dynamic as he was in, let's say 2012, 2013, 2014, he's much more experienced and much more sly than he used to be. And it's usually experience, especially in the NHL playoffs, which can be random and grueling and extremely long, that allows teams to prevail and escape with victories on the ice night after night.
Sure. All right. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I like where Clark's going with that. I've got the Pittsburgh Penguins coming out of the East as well. And if you look, I agree with Raul too. The Capitals and the Penguins, are going to be the top 2 teams going at. But if you look at the Penguins, they're 6-2 against the Capitals this year. They just beat them twice about a week ago. And you look at the front line of Evgeny Malkin. He's just coming back from injury. He's been out since mid-March. You got the experience of Sidney Crosby, Jake Gunsel. He's been a key player for the Penguins. He's only been with the team for 5 years. He already has the 33rd most points in Penguins history. You think about how storied this franchise has been. 5 years. He can score a lot. Mike Sullivan won back-to-back titles with the Penguins in 2016, 2017. I think all this experience and the record against the Capitals so far this year means the Penguins can take them down in a 7-game series,
Sure. And Clark definitely said it too. But Adam, I really think that, you talk about this team's depth a lot more, and the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially if they get Malkin back, it's going to be dangerous out there for the rest. So Adam, you're going to get the points on this one. And for you guys' final question of this heat, with the 2021 NFL Draft coming to a close, it is now time to scope out who will win the NFL Rookie of the Year. One of the most surprising parts of this year's draft was the fact that 5 quarterbacks were taken in the first round, with 3 of those being the top 3 picks. The crowd favorite so far has been the obvious first pick in Trevor Lawrence, blah, blah, blah. But he is joined by plenty of other offensive talent from this year's draft class at the top. Even though it was way too early, who is your frontrunner to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year for 2021? Clark, start us off.
I like the little points about Trevor Lawrence, blah, 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 because that's all we were hearing about all of this draft time. Look, I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. He is, without a doubt, a generational talent. But this Jacksonville team is awful for a reason. They're picking number 1 for a reason. And there's not a lot of talent that's surrounding him. DJ Chark, he's had some problems with injuries. Laviska Shenault and Colin Johnson both have a lot of potential, but they still need one more year to develop. They don't know what they're doing at running back. I don't know why they took Travis Etienne when they had James Robinson, so that position isn't solid. And again, you have to build offensive linemen always to protect a quarterback. And no offense to Urban Meyer, he was a great college coach, but I'm not sure his offensive system will translate well to the NFL level. Look at Tim Tebow. He was sort of that classic spread quarterback who always struggled to make reads and was always sort of playing haphazardly. And actually, you might be joining him as a tight end, according to some sources. But anyways, that's a separate subject. I think it's Justin Fields with the Chicago Bears. Even though Andy Dalton is already there, we know they're bringing in Justin Fields to be the future of the franchise. And Chicago has some nice weapons around Fields in year 1. They have David Montgomery and Allen Robinson who can both help him early. And Matt Nagy is an underrated head coach. He got to the playoffs twice with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. And he was also a part of that staff in Philadelphia that won the Super Bowl against Tom Brady in 2018. So when you put all those factors together, a quarterback who's extremely accurate, has a lot of ability, has some nice weapons surrounding him, and a good head coach, that makes an interesting brew. And also the division's fairly winnable because Vikings, Packers, Lions all have some dysfunction right now. So I think that Justin Fields could really rise to the top and show everybody that the Ohio State quarterback bus train is over.
All right, Clark's got Justin Fields. Adam, what say you?
Yeah, I think Clark's got the right idea. You look at Trevor Lawrence, he's kind of a low-hanging fruit. It'll be interesting to see how he does in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. I think the Jets are too incompetent for Zach Wilson to really be a contender. So I'm going to go with the number 3 pick. How about Trey Lance at the 49ers? You look back all the way back to when Robert Griffin III was a rookie. His offensive coordinator when he ran Offensive Rookie of the Year, Kyle Shanahan. Who's the head coach of the 49ers? Kyle Shanahan. And you look at the supporting cast. That's what Clark kind of talked about with Justin Fields. How about with Trey Lance in the backfield behind him? He's got Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. They just picked up Oklahoma running back Trey Sermon. And then at wide receiver, this speedy Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel who can stretch the field. And then the reliable target in George Kittle. I like the athleticism of Trey Lance. This is a San Francisco team. They won 6 games last year. They're not as far away as like Jacksonville and the Jets are. Keep an eye on Trey Lance this year. I think he could be a favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
All right, Trey Lance. Got another QB here. Okay. Raul, bring us home.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to change it up. I know we've talked about quarterbacks, but I actually don't think that any of the quarterbacks that have been drafted in that first round are going to be in a position to succeed just because of the personnel on the receiver cores. I don't think that the Jets, the Bears, 49ers, I don't think they have necessarily the components that a rookie quarterback is going to need to become Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to have to go with Jalen Waddle here, sticking to Miami once again, but not because of the bias, but because I do think him coming to Miami in Tua's second year as the quarterback is going to be the starter. And we obviously know that they had some experience playing together back at Alabama. I think that Jalen Waddle's ceiling is extremely high. I think the fact that he sat out another season really lowered people's expectations for him. I think when he starts playing, people are going to realize how effective he is. And the Dolphins made some steps to shore up their O-line and really make sure that Tua can play and play at a high level. So I think with the addition of a new offensive tackle in the draft, they also weren't too bad in allowing sacks last year. They were 14. I think Tua is going to be able to excel to the next level. That's going to really open up the offense. It's going to allow Devontae Parker to get some more down the field fade looks, really allow Jalen Waddle to work the middle of the field. And I think with his speed and playmaking ability, if Tua can get him the ball, he has a shot to become the Offensive Rookie of the Year and potentially lead the league in yards.
Yes, all great choices here. I think Waddle will, definitely help out the Dolphins when they need it the most. They need a little bit of help there in that position, so he'll be a big help there. As far as the whole entire NFL, I think Adam has it with Trey Lance here. The less pressure he has, it's going to be great. Justin Fields also is great. I think he was taken way too low as well. So Adam, you're gonna get the points on this one and the win. So congratulations. You have now secured a spot in the championship round. So coming up next, Jordan and Adam will compete to take home the Tournament of Champions title in a rapid fire round. You won't want to miss it.
premier sports talk show on the 40 acres. We're back.
Welcome to the finals of the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. It's time for rapid fire. In this round, points are worth double, and that means it's anybody's game in our sophomore showdown with our 2 kickball MVPs. I love to see it. Before we jump back in, let's reintroduce our championship title contenders. Adam, first base, start us off. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm excited. I'm just like Jordan said, man, that kickball MVP got me back in the mood. I remember when we were fighting for a championship as TSTV Sports. I'm ready to do it again here tonight on College Crossfire.
Oh, he's ready. All right, Jordan, what about you?
That's right. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous sitting backstage. I saw Adam tearing it up, but hopefully we'll be good. No matter who comes out on top, TSTV Sports is coming out on top.
There we go.
Hey, I love it. All right, guys, best of luck. Let's get to it. With this year's NFL draft being virtual like last year's, the players who were drafted in the first couple of rounds were given video cameras to put wherever they were watching the draft to record their reaction if they were picked. Almost all the players were in their homes or a bigger room surrounded by friends and family. Najee Harris even hosted a pre-draft party for the kids that live at a homeless shelter that he used to live at. He then gathered with his family at a restaurant in the Bay Area with his phone on hand. That was just one example, but if you were waiting to hear your name called in the NFL draft, where would you gather and who would you want by your side?
I think that while it's really great that Najee Harris, that was a great story that came out doing the homeless shelter. I'm going to choose something a little bit more selfish, and I'm going to say I'm going to take pretty much everyone I know, all my friends and family, up into the Tower of the Americas in San Antonio, rent out that whole dining room, and then whenever I get selected by whoever's team it is, they're going to shoot off fireworks out of the side like they do at New Year's. Yeah, and if it's the Bengals will shoot orange fireworks. If it's the Giants, they'll shoot blue and red fireworks, and that's what I would do, Tower of Americas.
Okay, very fun. I like it. Extravagant. Adam?
Man, fancy man over here, man, trying to rent out the whole Tower of the Americas. I'm going to keep it simple. Go family and friends, backyard, by the pool. But the key is the celebration. When you get picked and the cameras come on you, you got to be doing cannonball full suit in the pool. That's the way to make a statement for your new team.
Adam's like, splash in. We're splashing in. All right. Oh, those are both very fun. But I do like the very extravagant. I feel like I would be the extra person, just shoot off the fireworks. I got it. Ha, everyone in San Antonio knows. All right. Jordan, you're going to get the points on that one. Next up, Feliz Cinco de Mayo, y'all. In honor of Mexican Independence Day, we are going to talk about how Cinco de Mayo is now known as a boxing holiday. This came to be in the 1990s when Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. took down Frankie Randall. Then Oscar de la Hoya and Marco Antonio Barrera fought on Cinco de Mayo the years following that, and it started gaining traction in the early 2000s. This year's Cinco de Mayo fight will be this Saturday, pitting Canelo Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders. Quite the tradition. But if it was going to change and you could choose, what other holiday should have a fight dedicated to it?
Oh man, how about Election Day? For any election, presidential or the governor's election, whatever that's called, the goober or something, have the two candidates, instead of debating, have them debate with their fists. Now, most of them are pretty old guys. So the rounds might not last long. One hit would just take someone to the floor, and that hit probably wouldn't even be that strong. But I feel like, good old strength showdown to see who wins.
On Election Day. Okay, interesting. Adam, what about you?
Man, I think you got to go for the U.S. You got to go 4th of July. You got to get America's best boxer against England's best boxer. A little bit of throwback to the Revolutionary War. America always brag undefeated in the Revolutionary War. There's England's chance they could come back, get the American pride going. They'll get behind the American boxer, and we'll show England why we can still win now.
He said it, John. He said it. It's Independence Day. John behind the scenes is like, woo! I love it. Adam, yeah, without a doubt, you got the points on that one. Okay, so now we are in a tie heading into the final question of tonight. So stay strapped, guys. In honor of our final show of the semester, everyone is gearing up for their summer plans. And even though the NHL season isn't over yet, there is a tradition that once the season ends, a vast majority of the players spend a lot of their time off of the ice. They will obviously still keep up their fitness and, do their own thing, but they will use their other time to travel, go out, and spend time with friends and family anywhere there is sunshine and oceans and lakes. So if you just got done playing a full NHL season, what would be your summer plans?
Man, you got to go as far away from the ice as possible. As a Houstonian, I cannot take the cold. So what's the opposite of the North and South Pole? Go to the equator, go to the Caribbean. Perfect place to thaw out. It's beautiful weather there during the summer. Get you some of those nice, those all-inclusive resorts. Get you some drinks and stuff like that. Just chill and enjoy some warm weather with your family and friends. Get as far away from that ice as possible.
All right, we're getting, we're looking at maps now. We got to know. All right, Jordan.
That's right. Well, I'm a bigger fan of the beach than anyone else. I say if you're an NHL player, you're truly dedicated to the sport, you take no days off. You book a charter flight to Antarctica and you hang out with those polar bears and penguins down there. Don't take anyone. Just practice, practice, practice every single day. The grind never, ever stops. Just if you don't have ice skates, skate on some like old bones or whatever, like the Vikings used to do. I don't even know where that came from, but yeah, I would go to Antarctica. No days off.
Jordan, you're coming back with hypothermia, man. Your teammates going to appreciate you.
No days off the ice. I don't know. I feel, it was a good thought, Jordan. It really was. But Adam, you're going to take this home far away. Thaw out. You're winning tonight's Tournament of Champions. So congratulations on the win. That being said, it's time for FaceTime. Adam, take it away.
Man, shout out to Jordan. It was a blast. The sophomore showdown, kickball MVP showdown, geology buddy showdown. We survived that going through COVID. There you go. Gotta love it. But no, seriously, shout out to Jaxie too. She's just done a fantastic job hosting the show this semester. Every show we've done for this has been virtual. Shout out to her and John, especially for making this happen. Jake and Jordan too. Shout out to just everyone at TSTV, and especially our 4 seniors, Daniel, Henry, Thomas, and Hannah. It's been amazing learning from y'all. Another great semester at TSTV Sports, y'all. And I cannot wait to be back in studio in the fall. So shout out to everyone with TSTV Sports. It's been such a blessing working alongside y'all this year.
Well, thank you, Adam, for that. Those words were so kind, and I totally agree, and I appreciate the praise from me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Congratulations, Adam, and thank you all for tuning in to tonight's episode of the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. Don't forget to follow us on social media at TSTV Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, be sure to wake up with the One No Sports Show this Friday at 10 a.m. From all the panelists in our virtual studio and our virtual master control, from the last time of this semester and this year in my room, I'm Jaxie Pigeon. Have a wonderful evening.